born in Azad?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
I was young. I was 6 years old when we moved here. Be somewhere and to be somewhere completely different. I want to complete this. You've invested your time, effort, and energy into this. You want to get it over the line. What does Witton Lodge do, and how does it do housing and health and employment and all that stuff together? But the key skill, I think, is how do you bring those elements together? How do you knit stuff together? Do the things that make you feel a little uncomfortable. I don't know what my boundaries are really until you kind of constantly. So today I might feel like my boundaries here, but when I push it a little, well, actually it might be there. So you never know. And if you can keep that mindset, I don't quite know where my boundaries is, then you'll keep going, won't you? You'll keep evolving and developing, and who knows where it'll take you.
Alhamdulillah, God gave me everything. Alhamdulillah.
You make a choice and say, come hell or high water, I'm going to be this, then you should not be surprised when you are that. And I gave my soul to this game. There's nothing more I can give.
Everest is obvious to climb because it's there, it's a mountain. Personal Everest, you can't see it. No one can see it but you. Never give up on a dream.
Well, look deep within myself and ask myself how much I want it. What am I here for? Don't lose that desire.
I want to unleash the beast.
When I sat here in this crowd, US 93, and saw all these guys, I realized it's there. It's there for the taking if I put the time in.
Be true to the game, because the game will be true to you. If you try to shortcut the game, then the game's going to shortcut you.
Welcome to the game. Today I'm joined by Afzal Hussain, the Chief Officer of the Witton Lodge Community Association. Finally got there. Yeah, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, very well.
Let's talk about that. So what is Witton Lodge and what do you do?
Well, Witton Lodge Community Association, we're it's a community association, It's a charity, it's a social enterprise, it's a community anchor. We're based in, the clue's in the name, we're based in Perry Common and serve the Erdington, North Birmingham area. I think, I'll tell you what we do, but I think what's important is what we stand for. Okay. Really, and our focus and kind of purpose is, on the one hand, it's about improving places and neighborhoods. That's the stuff that you see around you, okay? And importantly, alongside that is really the focus on people. And so we combine that work in neighborhoods with a focus on kind of, one, supporting people, but also, unleashing talent. Okay. And we do that by working with and alongside our community. So we believe you get better results, you get better change, you get change that sticks. If you combine what exists in our neighborhoods, in our communities, with what the agencies are doing, so putting those things together. Okay, but just in layman terms, because obviously I understand what you mean, because I'm kind of in that environment. But let's say if you were just a person, average Joe, explain Witton Lodge Community Association. You mentioned there that you're a plethora of things. You're not just a charity, you're not just an association, you're not just a community organization. So if you could just label it in, let's say, one line before we delve deeper, what is Witton Lodge Community Association? So if you're a local resident, it's a place where you can come to. If you need something, it's a place where you'd come to, and we're there. And we might not have all of the services, but we know, how to support you, provide that information. So it's being that kind of, I call it community anchor. Yeah, helping hand is a good way of describing. It's knowing that you can go there and someone's going to kind of, listen to you and kind of hear you out and then do something about it. Is it hygiene issues? Is it stuff on the road? What sort of things is it? It's all of those things. This is what I was saying. So, the things associated with, the place. So it will be about housing. So we own and manage housing. Okay. So yeah, we are, one of our companies is a registered housing association. So, homes of good quality, affordable, really important that we do that. We also manage a number of community buildings and facilities where we run, a whole range of services from. And then there are often times, people come to see us because they've got an issue, with getting advice and support. They might want to kind of contact the council or some other agency. So we're there to, support them with those kind of issues. How does that kind of all fit together?
So Witton Lodge Community Association, I keep messing it up, but Witton Lodge Community Association, that's kind of the overarching like umbrella body. Could I say that? Or,
Yeah.
So then just tell me about the different factors. So you got the housing, then so what are the other ones? Because obviously it's all helping hands, but how did you kind of like...
Yeah, so probably the easiest way to describe it, on the one hand, we've got kind of homes and buildings and assets.
Okay.
On the other hand is what we call our flourishing community kind of program. And that's really all about the services focused on people, particularly around kind of health and well-being, employment, skills. So, we offer kind of qualifications as well as non-accredited stuff. So, those services, if you want to kind of say, what are the two services? So some stuff about kind of, homes and buildings and roads and everything else, parks and open spaces. We do that. And the other side is all about kind of people, the kind of things that often people experience in their kind of neighborhoods. And the reason why we do all of those things is because people's lives aren't in neat boxes. Do you know what I mean? And often it will be an issue, they will come and present something, but actually it's linked to something else and linked to something else. So the reason why the reason why we develop those services is because that's what we know makes the difference in our community. So that's what we aim to do, provide that one-stop kind of
shop
support.
That support system.
Exactly.
How did that kind of transpire? Well, let's take us back a bit in terms of how did you get involved with Witton Lodge? Like, were you in the stage of development? Were you in the building block stage, or have you come on when they've been established?
Yeah, so I came on when they were established. So Witton Lodge was established in 1994. Actually, the same year I started working, but not at Witton Lodge.
Okay.
And the reason why Witton Lodge was created is because really there was a crisis in the community. About 1,000 households were told that their homes were going to be demolished. And that the council at that time didn't have any money to rebuild it. And so they were like, what are we going to do? And really the local community organized themselves and worked with the council and set up the association. I'm kind of shortcutting. It took about 5 years. And created the association as the regeneration vehicle for Perry Common. And what the council did was transferred some land into the association. And then the association, which has a resident majority kind of board, we have a board of 12, 8 of those are local residents, really important. And we've kept that over the last kind of nearly 30 years. They then went and developed business plan, went to the banks, got some money and started the rebuilding of Perry Common. And that happened for the first 15 years. Up until about 2010, really the redevelopment started to happen. Homes were coming out the ground, roads and all of that stuff was really shaking.
The tangible things.
The kind of things that you would see. And it's a massive change. If you knew the area before and see it now, it's a world of difference. And that was a start. It was really important. And for the first 15 years, the board really and some of our community directors did things for themselves, as in they did the kind of the procuring, the managing, etc. But around 2009, 10, they really wanted to turn their attention to the issues, the other issues, particularly around unemployment and health and, those kind of issues. And they then decided that they wanted to recruit a team and employ people to...
Do you know how that kind of happened? Obviously, not your place to say, but do you know why that was kind of happening? I can't speak today.
No.
Why that transition was happening in terms of... so they started obviously with the regeneration and they've done that, but then the transfer to becoming the helping hand of doing all the other things that you said?
Yeah, so, true regeneration... Really, you need to deal with the issues of place and
people.
The issues. That's what Otherwise, you do rebuilding and redevelopment.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping to say.
And I think that stuff is important. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying that is easy. Working with people, that's the stuff that really makes the difference and longer term. And I think as the board saw that the building stuff was starting to take shape. They really wanted to kind of support the community. And, some of the statistics at the time were grim. If you lived in King's Standing, which is the ward that we were in at that time, our residents tended die younger. They had poor health. Unemployment rates were really high. Low levels of skills. I'm painting a kind of a picture which is not great, but that's the reality. That's the reality.
The facts.
So there are lots of and the one side you've got that. On the other side you've got young people, and others who've got huge amounts of talent, and that talent gets
untapped.
Wasted. And so they really wanted to focus on that side to complement the redevelopment, because that's really true community regeneration.
So then talk to me about, as you're saying before, you're going to get onto before I interrupted, but then your kind of involvement within it. So then that kind of, so was it when you were kind of moving on from solely focusing on the regeneration program to then becoming the helping hand and doing the health and all the other aspects? Was that kind of when you came in? So they were trying to build that new team, or?
Yeah, so they were. The board was looking to recruit, and then they'd advertise for a role, and I knew about Witton Lodge because I've been involved in regeneration for many years. So I knew of Witton Lodge. I didn't really know what it really stood for, and then they advertised for the role of chief officer, and at that time I'd been working in Coventry, so I was really looking to move back to Birmingham, and I saw that, and I thought it looked really interesting, and I asked for an application pack. I looked at some of the information. I asked some people that I knew what they knew about the association, what do they stand for, just to get a sense of
feel for it.
What they, because sometimes what you see on an advert and the reality, totally sometimes different. These things don't. And by and large, people were saying really good things about what the association had done. I then went. It was a grueling kind of interview process. I can't remember. Well, I do remember actually. There were many stages. But what really attracted me is that it had a really good business plan as well. And then I met some of the directors, and when you get a sense of these people are serious about it.
They know what they're talking about.
Passionate about it, and they're prepared to invest. They had some funds. They were going to put some money into it, and they really wanted to make. So all of those things attracted me to it, and it was a new challenge. This is a new entity, really, from my point of view. They wanted to, recruit a team and start to develop this flourishing community agenda. And I thought that sounds, for me, because it combines so many different elements. There's variety, there's impact, there's that community focus, there's strategic stuff with the council and others. I thought, great.
So then, so obviously was that when they kind of established as that helping hand, or was that before? Because I'm trying to get a picture of when you first joined. So was it when they were moving away from just becoming a regeneration in terms of just housing to doing loads of other stuff in terms of becoming the helping hand? Was that kind of the process there?
Yeah, so the board had gone through a process of it saying, what are the services that we want to provide? How do we want to work? And that's where that kind of work on the business. So I think they went through quite a lot, long process as a board, really, just deciding and deliberating and then saying, okay, now, and we've got a plan, and we've got to put some money behind it. Let's go out and recruit a chief officer and a couple of other posts, and then let's invest in this.
So it's clear now that you were there in terms of that trajectory moving forward. That's a massive pressure.
It's a massive opportunity. I suppose it depends how you look at it.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
You look at it you could look at impression kind of think, yes, or you look at what a fantastic challenge and an opportunity. They've done some great stuff, some really solid foundations, brilliant people, and I thought, right.
Let's unpack that. Let's go further back now, because obviously I want to unpack your mentality in terms of because that's similar to kind of mine. It's like, if you got opportunity, just go for it. There's no point overthinking it in terms of what could go wrong. Think about what could go well. That's kind of like my mantra. But let's take it back and unpack it from you. So what was life like growing up, and where we kind of raised Birmingham? But just talk to me about growing up.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Aston. Actually, I moved to Aston with my mum and my younger brother and sister from Pakistan. Azad Kashmir is when we moved here.
So you were born in Azad
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
I was 6 years old when we moved here.
Speak English better than me? I said you speak English better than me.
Well, not for the first 5 years when I came here, because that's another story. But really moving here to join my dad, who was here, he'd been here as a kind of a young man. I say young man, actually he came when he was about 14, 15. So, that's where we moved to join my dad, who'd been here for a number of years, and moved to Aston. So, and there's big, as you probably imagine, well, I don't know whether you can imagine, to, be somewhere and to be somewhere completely different. Completely different.
I can try and imagine it, but
it's tough. It's sometimes
like,
when I think about
things you have to go through to.
Well, exactly. It's like when I think about my dad's generation. The kind of things that they had to do themselves. Leave everything they knew behind to come to make a better life for themselves and their families.
I mean, that was what the whole project was about. Yeah,
exactly. And you kind of think, how pioneering were they? Do you know what I mean? To be able to have.
Yeah, 100%.
Just to get up and go and to be able to do that, and then think about the kind of things that they experience. But we moved to Aston. That was our family home. I went to school locally, and first few years I mentioned went to school, but language.
Yeah, you were struggling.
You don't have any of.
What was that like?
Those what was it like?
I know it's a tough question.
Yeah, I'm just, you take me back then.
I feel like we have to kind of understand who you are today.
I understand. When you're a child, I think you go with, because you don't know any different.
Yeah, you go with the flow.
You go with that. So I was enrolled in the local primary school, Prince Albert School, and I just went. I met the teacher. I didn't, she was nice. I didn't know what she was saying. She gave me a book. I looked at the pictures, and met some, other children, and actually some of my friends are still friends from primary school. So in some ways those times are tough, but they're also times when you make. Have relationships and create friendships. So
what was the language barrier like? Obviously in the beginning, now you're fluent English, but in the beginning, what was it like? Was it kind of like that? Was it kind of overbearing in some senses, where like it was kind of like hurting you internally, or were you kind of happy with it? Like, did you even realize it?
You knew that you couldn't understand what was going on, but you went with what you do is like you copy,
you adapt.
Who's next to you, your friend or whoever it is, you see what they're doing and you go, you go with that. And eventually, as with, anything that you do, things become a little easier and gradually over time.
Pick you up in it.
But, in terms of just being able to, read and write and understand, I mean, that takes a good long while, and probably well into my secondary school really before I really fully kind of be happy with being able to kind of
what was the feeling like though? Because you can see yourself. No one has to tell you that you're a bit behind other students just because you don't know the language. You might be the same smart, same level of intellect and intelligence, but obviously on the outset, just because the communication levels are there, you're a bit behind. So what was that feeling like? Because you strike me as an intelligent man, so it's like I kind of get that same thing where like if I know I'm behind someone else my age or like a similar circumstance to me, I feel that kind of pressure, like I gotta be next to him because I got that thing within me, that drive. Was it the same for you? Even that young, like I can see myself, if I had a language barrier or something stopping me from excelling, I'd be really like pissed off about it, frankly. But so how was it for you?
I don't think I was annoyed by it. It was just something that I didn't have and I needed to have, and I was immersed in it. And I think as a child, you're adaptable, aren't you? You kind of just go with the flow. There are things that you didn't understand, didn't know, but there were things that you did. So, what I didn't know English, I didn't understand, what we're doing in maths, for example.
So you focus on the positives.
You knew, there was stuff that you could contribute. And I have to say, even back then, some of the teachers were great and lovely, and they wouldn't kind of make you feel like, oh, you didn't understand.
Like ostracized or whatever.
And things that they would do. So listening and reading and, just paying attention, went a long way.
What was Aston like as a whole? Aston, what was it like as a whole? Just generally?
Yeah, well, I love Aston. You know what I mean? So, when you grow up somewhere, it's your home, isn't it, really? No,
but Aston, I feel like it's the same with Erdington or with Wash Reef or Allen Rock. Like, you can either go one or two ways. Like, in terms of like, obviously the street stuff, you got all these other distractions. So how was it kind of like for you navigating it?
Yeah, I mean, parts of it. I mean,
You know where I'm coming from.
I
Like,
do know where you're
it's
coming
natural.
from, and I mean, it was a very mixed area. You know, back in the kind of early 80s.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you have a circle of friends who live locally, I mean, that's what you know. You know, so you know what you know, and you go out and do that. You're all in the kind of same boat. Parts of it were kind of tough. I mean, we were not far from the Villa ground. I'm an Aston Villa fan.
Yeah, come on.
You know, but actually, I mean, those early 80s, I mean, we couldn't go out and play on match days because, frankly, you know, they chased young kids, and you know, there was a, it wasn't good in that sense, and so actually, our mum used to keep us in on kind of match days, wouldn't let us go out and stuff like that. But then you also have your mates and your friends, and kind of life is what you make it, and so you go with that. So I have really great memories of growing up. The negative sides, but then there are always downsides, aren't there? In life? It depends on what you focus on.
So the question was kind of like navigating it, because clearly you've navigated it well, but it's like, because I speak to a lot of kids, and I know people my age as well, like people that have gone, because I went to grammar school, people that have gone grammar school and they've gone, it's the same thing for them. It's not the same. It's like everyone thinks like there's a perception that just because you go to grammar school you're different from a comprehensive student, but if your parents and your kind of circle is the same, then you go to the same challenges, and it's always there, like the street stuff, like it's like, I don't know what to call it, like the allure of, like, you know, whatever that thing is now. So it's like for you, because it's natural, everyone kind of gets that, like the inkling towards it, but then what stopped you from going towards it and focusing on your own path? Or was it ever a thing?
Probably a combination of things. I mean, I think a lot of it is to do with what happens in the home. You know, the expectations that your parents have. What are the boundaries? What are the rules that they set?
The foundation.
I think that's it's really important. I suppose in many ways I was fortunate. When I went to secondary school, I got in with the kids who were, bright and academic. I'd be able to get on with them. And actually, I was equally friends with people who were a bit more street. And and being able to have friends like that, I think was important, because there's a lot when you're a young lad transitioning. I think there's so much going on, and there's quite a lot of pressures. Your place, your space.
Like you're trying to find who you are.
Exactly. So it's not easy to navigate, and I'm not sure you actually do know. I mean, afterwards, when you look back, you can try and say it's this or that. But I think it's a combination. It's a combination of things. I think what happens in the home is really important. I mean, who your friends are, who you hang, is really important.
Your circle.
And so one of the things that we did, we went to the kind of masjid after school. So you're having a teacher there and a different circle. So there were different
There's all
experiences.
those support systems.
And also to be able to go and mix with some other people. When you're out on the street, to be able to do that. So
so what I'm getting from you is you're kind of friends with everyone, but like it never really it wasn't really a law for you or like a thing for you to do. Like you were kind of more interested in doing your own thing and like going forward that way.
Yeah, I always felt like
because you had a support system around you the whole time.
Yeah, I always felt like you have options and choices, but sometimes I to be honest, I think some of it is by luck. Do you go down this route or do you go down that route?
Life experiences.
And that's what happened. So I can tell you, there's a grand design. It was this, that, and the other. But some of it is just down to that. But I do think that the support systems that you have around you, as you said, are really important. Some of those your family, some of those at school, your teachers. I mean, some teachers still stick in my mind, the ones who really kind of connected, who made a difference to me. Your friends, and if you haven't got kind of those, then actually what's going on in terms of youth work. And so I remember it was called NACA, which is the North Aston Community Association, which is the local youth club. And so you could go there and hang out, and there were always people who are kind of looking out, if that makes sense.
Like supervision kind of.
Like
you don't really feel it, but it's like overarching thing. Like you have your maths teacher, you have a teacher at school, you have your parents at home, and then you also have the youth club, youth workers and stuff like that.
And if you can get a good sense of belonging from those people and those groups, I think that goes a long way, because often young people that I speak to or that we work and support, it's often that sense of being part of something.
Exactly.
And if you can be a part of something which is, going to be
positive,
good for you, or
negative.
something which is not.
100%.
And if we, that's what you aim for, don't you? And that's what you try to create or recreate.
So it comes down to adaptability, I think, in a sense where, like, when you go through your teenage years, that's kind of like with a flick. If you ever switches, that's when it kind of switches in terms of, like, because I think to round off your point is, obviously you got your sports system, but then it's about who you are and like what you're trying to be. So was that ever a thing for you in terms of like your drive to, when it came to your A levels or O levels back, what was it called back then?
Back in those dark days, what was it called? I think our year did the very last O levels before they transitioned.
Yeah. So you're coming to your O levels and university. Talk to me about that transition. Like, when did you kind of really find your kind of who you are and your calling?
I mean, some people I think may be blessed with knowing what their calling is. I'm not sure I did, really. What I knew when I was in school is that I was good at some subjects. I was actually good at some subjects that I didn't think I would be.
Okay.
English being one of those, would you believe?
Yeah. I'm the same, Yeah.
And I remember Mrs. Robbins, who was a supply teacher. She wasn't there for long.
Okay.
And she was the English teacher, and she introduced, when you read books and stuff. She introduced a book which was the first time when I read it, the characters kind of I could relate to. So it was a book called My Mate Shafiq, which. It's quite a. I'm not saying it's a dark book, but it's set in the 70s. Yeah, and she introduced this book, and it had a kind of Pakistani lad, and it was about his situation and what he went through. Okay. And I remember, it's funny, isn't it? All these years later, what you remember. And she introduced that book, and that somehow engaged me. And then English, and so that was. Something which changed something that I didn't think I was particularly good at, to writing and doing that. And then, the O levels, I mean, they kind of, I suppose, just happened. There was no great, plan in my mind. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that.
No inkling at all.
I had an inkling that I like finding out about stuff. So I'm curious. I think I'm naturally curious. When you came, I was like, how do you set these up? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? So, I'm naturally curious. So things like the sciences appealed to me about kind of, discovering and learning. And I thought that was good. And I had, decent results when I left school. And then I did A levels, which were just a natural flow. So maths and physics and chemistry. Okay, you said natural flow, the three top A levels. But to be honest, when someone told me, there was, but it's what your circle, and it's what you know.
Now for you, it's kind of natural, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean about going with the flow of those things, and so along with the subject, it was really the first time that I started to meet people. So I originally went to Joseph Chamberlain and Matthew Bolton as a college, but that was really first time properly, I think, when I started to meet people from different areas and kind of get a sense of,
what everything's about.
And just meet people from different backgrounds and have different conversations. And I thought, all right, okay. And so the first kind of inklings about fairness and just to be able to have a discussion with someone about why
so that kind of like piqued your interest a bit.
It did. It did. So
because interesting you said that, because you're talking about the sciences 1 second, and then now you're talking about justice, fairness. That's more like philosophy. I didn't know what it was, but I'm just saying, like, retrospectively, it's kind of like,
all I knew is I was meeting people, and they were still doing the subjects that I was doing. So they'd be on my course, and we'd have discussions outside in the common room or whatever. Those conversations was sometimes about what we'd now call kind of social issues and stuff. And I was like, so it started to
like theology kind of.
And get a sense of someone's perception of something or their background, and that started to pique a little bit of interest. But also, I mentioned the youth kind of organization. That started it had some funding problems. I didn't know really what it had, but it was going to close, and I was like, I didn't understand why was that closing. It's it was really well used, really popular. And I was like, what's going on with this? So these are just some early inklings about, other stuff other than, the sciences. But I didn't know what to make of it.
Yeah. We were just kind of just nagging you from the back of your head, innit?
Yeah. And then, did my A-levels, and then the natural thing seemed to be to go and do something which was kind of science related. And I thought, okay, what science related? And so I did chemical engineering.
What was that like?
It was tough.
Because what I'm saying is, like, obviously you get a bit of grinding from it now, looking back, but at the time it looks like a waste in terms of doing your A-levels and then doing university in chemical engineering. How long was it? 3-4 years?
4 years.
4 years, and then now you're chief officer in a role that you might have picked up skills from it, but it's not entirely what you're doing beforehand. So it's like, before we talk about transition, then, so what was the idea in university, picking chemical engineering? Like, was that like, were you set on like, oh, I'm going to go through with this? Or
I think so. I think I had a sense of, well, look, I enjoy sciences, and this is a way of applying science and doing that, and you think about a job and a career and what have you. So mine was a sandwich degree, so I spent a year in placement. So I came back and placement in Albury, and really that was the first time really that when I did that for a year, I was like, I'm not really sure about this.
Was that a tough conversation to have? Was that a tough conversation to have with your parents?
No, I didn't have a conversation with my parents. This was an internal conversation.
Okay.
And I was like, I thought I'd enjoy it more than I did. You do the theory and then you're doing the practice, and I was like,
this ain't the one.
Well, I didn't know, but when something you have a passion you love and you kind of connect with it, it just didn't quite connect with me in doing that. Then I finished off the degree, and still.
Why stick with it? Why stick with it? Because obviously you're not feeling it, or you're not feeling it too tough, as in like you're not really there. But then why stick with it? Like, why not switch off there?
Well, because what are the other options? What are the other options? And also
you felt stuck a bit.
No, actually, I felt if anything, I want to complete this. You've invested your time, effort, and energy into this. You want to get it over the line, and
why? Obviously, you invested time and you invested your energy into it, but still, why?
Because I think part of that was, look, if you're going to get on in life, it's important that you have, the qualification behind you.
Was this
like
intrinsic?
Lots of people.
Was this intrinsic in terms of like your own conversations? Or?
Yeah. These were internal conversations. I didn't say to my parents, I've done a year of this placement, I'm not sure it's for me. And I thought maybe I'm just going through it, because it's very limited experience. And I was like, am I not giving this enough kind of thought or time? So that's what it was. But all I'm saying is, when you have a love for something and you have a kind of passion and connection, that just felt absent from that. So I was doing that. It was good. I'm not, it was a good experience.
But you just weren't getting the buzz in it.
I wasn't getting it, that things that connect, in here. When you do that something and you're like kind of,
No, I know what you mean.
So engage the head well. I'm not sure engage the heart.
Exactly. That's a good way of saying.
And when you get, when you get both of those things, then you're onto something. So certainly engage the head. And as I said, so I completed the degree. I think one of the things that worked in my favor, although I didn't think at the time, is when I graduated in the kind of 90s, early mid 90s, we were kind of in a recession, so jobs were not that easy to come by. And so when I finished, some of my friends went on and did some other stuff, and I applied for jobs. They weren't, as I said, it wasn't a great time, and there was an opportunity to volunteer in an employment resource centre over in Small Heath. So it was just, in fact, it was a friend of my dad who was looking for someone to, help him out. To help him out and do something. And I thought, well, I've got time.
You ain't got a job. Enough is going on.
And I thought, well, why not? Why not? Give it an opportunity. Give it a go. And I have to say that. When I got into that and I saw the difference that could, again. You know what? It really did. It really did. I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. I could see what was happening. I could see the difference it was making to people's lives. I think I was probably hooked.
But then, okay, there's a lot to unpack here. I got 2 questions. Let's go a tiny bit back in terms of when you graduated and you said your mind was in it, but your heart was a beating. What was that like when you never got a job? Like when you started applying, but you weren't getting no feedback?
Yeah.
What was that like? Were you kind of relieved or were you kind of nervous?
No, not at all. I mean, when you apply for jobs, it's, if you don't hear back, which is what tend to happen.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
It's disheartening, isn't it? Because this is your life that you're putting down on a piece of paper with your CV, and you're thinking someone can't even bother to come back and say no, or you don't even hear anything. So, those moments are, those moments are tough. They're tough moments. I suppose you keep going, don't you? You either stop and you kind of think.
Yeah. But was that ever in the mindset, the thought process? Because it's natural to for 2 months to start crying and like, well, not crying, but you know what I mean? Be pissed off and just be like, oh, and I started like this, that, and then just kind of just do nothing for a bit. Or were you kind of always on the journey, always on the hamster wheel? I don't want to make it sound like it was like I was all kind of like on this and I knew what I wanted to do. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. But it never felt like, I'm going to give up and stop now. Okay. Because, what are your other options then? What are the alternatives? And the alternative is do nothing.
No, always have a sense of agency. I've always felt like there's always something you can do. That's from
childhood.
That there's always something you can do. There's always a choice in whatever the situation.
100%.
You have, and it's whether because. Even if you choose not to do something, you're still making a choice. So do the choice that's going to do something for you.
It's about the potential. Because like I see what you're saying. Because I have a similar thing in terms of like, because I've had loads of setbacks. But then it's kind of like, if I went through, let's say if I had one setback and then I got through it and then I met another setback, what was the point of going to the first setback if I ain't gonna carry on? Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you've gone this far, you might as well just keep going. Yeah, like if you don't do nothing and you kind of just sit at home, cry about it, and then like what most people tend to do now is just smoke a bit of bud or like, you know what I mean? They start going down this wrong path and just basically going on a spiral downwards. And then once you do that, it's kind of like you may like when you do decide, I'm gonna do something and come back, you're never gonna do it because you're about 55 steps down the ladder. You know what I mean? When you were there, so it's like you gotta keep going. Well, there's a saying, isn't there? You know what? Because setbacks happen to everyone. Yeah, exactly. That just is life, And there's a saying, isn't there? It's not what happens to you that matters. It's what you do with what happens to you that matters. Exactly. Yeah. And 100%. So. And I think that's true. Same thing can happen to 2 different people, and how they react will be different. 2 different ways, and a lot of that is down to mindset. So I absolutely agree. Inspiration is great, but actually application, doing something, moving, being kinetic, that stuff. Proactive. It's the stuff that I believe and makes the difference. And that is about kind of it's about mindset. And as I said, you can either be on the the effect side of things. So this has happened to me, isn't terrible, and it is. Like it's okay. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel low. But then actually you can do something about it. Exactly. Like everyone's got to take a moment. It's not like when we're talking about it, it's not immediate. It's not like you're gonna 1 second and then go. It's like you might take an hour, 2 hours. It might be a day. It might be a week. But the point is, once you've gone through it and you felt you're low and you kind of experience that, then you go ahead and you move forward and you keep pushing. It's not like, because that's what I kind of don't get about people that meet, like you probably meet them in real life. Like, we're going to meet some people that just, when you go meet them or talk to them or whatever, they're just crying all the time. Like, all you hear is just like the negatives of their life, and like they talk as if like everyone's got the shit. Like, I mean, like their problem's the biggest problem ever, and no one's ever like associated with it. But what you gotta realize, everyone goes through something. Like, everyone's got issues, and it's like the ones that make something are the ones that overcome it and do better. It's like, it's another saying is like, the further an arrow is pulled back, the further it goes. It's like those setbacks make you. But then knowing that in mind and knowing that you were like that from childhood, then talk to me about joining the employment centre through your father's network or your father's mate. Like, were you readily like happy to do it like straight away, or? What was the kind of process like?
Yeah.
Because it's a deviation from your current path.
Well, I didn't, in all honesty, I didn't really know what it was, what I was going to, but I thought, well, let's find out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bit about being curious. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I mean, like,
proactive as well.
unless
Yeah.
you kind of go and try it, then how would you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And, the best opportunity, I didn't think about it like this, but that, the best opportunity might be around the corner and you just haven't turned the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
100%.
Take a look, experience it. If it's not for you, what have you lost? But if it is for you, just imagine what you can find, and that might be the, might be the gem.
The switch.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know whether it was one thing about that experience, but there's just something about it. Working with people and supporting people. These are people looking for work and qualifications training, and providing support in there. So I volunteered there for about 10 months, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was
a
like,
long time for
and I was
volunteering,
like
though.
a sponge then. I was like, because it was completely different to what I'd done and what I knew. Taking that in and seeing how things worked and things happened, and I thought, you know what, this feels like I could do. I could make a career of this, and see whether I could make a career of it.
So how did that deviation happen then? In terms of chemical engineering degree, especially it's a two-part question in terms of like your own thinking of gone through this whole degree, why waste it? Well, not waste it, but like why move on to something that's totally different from what it is? And then you got your parents you basically done all this hard work, you gone through all the journey, and now you're going to do something else, and it might not work. So how is it dealing with all of that? You see where I'm coming from?
I do see where you're coming from. I never really looked at it like that, if I'm honest. I was
Okay.
like, I've done that. I've got that knowledge. I've got that experience.
Yeah.
And there are skills that you pick up in anything that you do.
Yeah, of course.
And the skill of being able to think through rationally, to be able to structure things and to put things across. I mean, that was a good skill to have.
Yeah.
So,
That's a
the
skill for
kind
life.
of things that you need to be able to do, whether you're writing a report or communicating something. I mean, those skills are there. As an engineer, I can process stuff. I can get thinking what's the end goal and how do you get there, and do all of that. The conversations, in all honesty, weren't that difficult with my parents. They weren't like, oh, you've got to, you've done this, you've got to go and study that. I think that because they saw me doing something and they saw that
that's very like forward thinking. Well, because I wasn't expecting that really. Because the stereotypical kind of thing is like, now you personally, just across the board, it's kind of like you've done something for this long, why not stick with it? And like in terms of, you got transferable skills, of course, you got transferable skills in anything, but in terms of like, why go to a totally different thing, in terms of the name, in terms of the actual thing itself, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I didn't ever think that I'm not going to do engineering. So it never I didn't make a conscious, I'm ruling it out.
Okay. You did close the door.
So I wasn't ruling it out, I was ruling other stuff in.
That
was the difference. So I was like, that's there. And there's this thing too.
That's kind of like a back burner.
That's there. I have that. And this thing looks interesting.
Okay.
Where will this take me? What
Okay.
And so it wasn't a case of closing a door on this and opening. No, I mean, and that's the other thing about kind of choice. If you can keep choices available and options open, absolutely, do that. And it's then when I was like, okay, I've volunteered, I've done this, and then thinking about a career in this, are there jobs in this, and actually can you make a career of it? And then you rule those things in rather than ruling anything out. So that's
interesting. That's interesting because that's a very like updated and grown mindset. Like, because I wasn't really expecting it from like, not in a bad way, but just like I wasn't really thinking like that in terms of like, although you might say like, I enjoyed it, but then it was kind of like a new thing for me, and then I ruled the other one out, and then I went through. But like, it's good that you kind of said that, like, I had that in the back burner, but let me go for this. Yeah. Because you don't expect that from a lot of people. It's a good mindset to have. Like, don't get me wrong, but I mean in terms of like, you have like most people will kind of just say like, I left it because I don't really enjoy it. Like, it weren't grabbing my heart, and I went for this. But the fact that you said like, look, this can be in the back burner, I might revert to it if I need to. But let me try this. Yeah. Very grown.
I mean, it is what it is, as they say, in that. And it's not, so, because some things, you consciously think about things, don't they, to make sense of things. And then there are things which happen unconsciously. There's stuff that you're running all of the time, aren't you, in terms of how you think about things and how you process stuff and how that comes out. And some of that I think is innate, as in it's in you, and other things you learn, don't you?
Environmentally.
And you learn those things. So I always, and I still say this to people, that keep your option. If you've got options, try them out. See what you really kind of, find you have a skill for, find that you're passionate about. And if those things connect, then, go with that. Rule things in rather than rule things out. I'm not sure I'm adding any more to what I, said earlier.
Let's move forward then. So when that switch happened, from when obviously you got to rule things in, but then it comes to a point where there are too many cooks and you can spoil the broth. So then I can't speak today. Spoil the broth. But so like, how can I say this in constructively? So then when you have the chemical engineering degree in the background, then you have what you're doing now. When there's a crossroads that happens where you got to pick one or the other and kind of pursue it fully, because a lot of people, they might just put loads of eggs in different baskets, but then you're a master of nothing. You're not good at anything. You're just good at loads of different things. You know what I mean? You're not really putting your full focus.
I never think about it like that. Though. I've never thought about it like that, really. I mean, funnily enough, when it comes to chemical engineering, at the moment, what is there talk about? Green technologies, heat exchangers, air source heat pump, ground horse speed. Guess what? Those things are, so these things still come in handy when I'm talking to engineers or developments, and so
that's been interesting, because for me, I feel like it's the other way around. I feel like the ones that have loads of different things cooking at the same time are the ones that don't really fulfill the potential in one thing. You know what I mean? They don't take it as far as they could, because they're doing so many different things and they're kind of left short.
Yeah.
But you don't see like that, do you?
Not at all. No. I think you can be there's that saying about jack of all trades.
And
master of some.
Okay.
So I think about it like that, really. I think you can master some and become, excel at those things, and do that. And I mean, I think part of that goes back to your first question about what does Witton Lodge do, and how does it do housing and health and employment and all that stuff together, because we do, and you have to have an understanding of those different areas. But the key skill, I think, is how do you bring those elements together? How do you knit stuff together?
But that's management. So that's later on. But what I mean is, in your inception.
Why is it later on?
Nah, because it's you got to build yourself up. So it's got to be you got to become a master in all these different little fields. Then you can kind of bring it all together later on.
I'm not there with that. I think you can. People have. I think people have skills and experiences, and whether you're 20 or 50, I'm like, yes, there's experience that you get, but I think I meet people still, and I knew young people who are enterprising, who are entrepreneur, who are managing stuff. Some stuff which they're being enterprising with, you wouldn't want them to be doing. But what I'm saying is they've got those skills. They're just applying them in a particular way. So I've never thought about, there's a way of you get to a certain level and then you're thinking, there's management thinking and then leadership.
No. So I think you got me wrong. I agree with that.
Okay.
But what I meant was, in terms of let's say for you, for example, you got the chemical engineering degree, then you've got obviously the transformation in terms of the employment and that kind of aspect, in terms of let's call it a social enterprise. For example, let's just keep that as a name. So you got social enterprise and then you got chemical engineering. But then what I'm trying to say is, they're two totally different facets. So in order to learn one fully and kind of delve deep in it and actually make a career from it, you gotta focus on one now. There comes to a point, you might be good at doing both at the same time, but there comes to a point, if you want to fulfill your potential, where you gotta pick one.
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm coming from with that?
I think so. Let me kind of play this back to see where I'm on the right track with this. Okay. So I think once I had that experience of volunteering, I then looked and said, actually, are there any jobs in this then?
Okay.
And looked and applied for some jobs, and I remember I was called for an interview at 5:30 on one weekday, and I was like, oh, that's not a good sign, is it? 5:30, who calls you for an interview at that time?
Yeah, exactly.
5:30, and it must have been I think it was about kind of autumn, because it was, you know what I mean, it wasn't particularly light. Anyway, I went along to the interview, and someone got, it wasn't the first job I applied, but I was offered a job as doing employment support.
Okay.
With a housing association, and they were setting up a new unit and they're looking for people. So I was like, at that point, I was like, okay, there's a job in here. There's a inkling then in my mind that maybe there's a career in this, and could I make a career in that? And I think that at that point, when I had a job, when I was working, and then I was like, okay, then how do I get the knowledge and the experience? So I had the starting of the experience because of that work, volunteering. Then you move into that paid role. There's more experience. You kind of start, it's like kind of broader breadth in terms of different projects. And then I went back and did some more learning. So I did a postgraduate in urban regeneration.
Okay.
So for me,
you said like a postgraduate in
urban regeneration.
Yeah. Before we kind of go into that, talk to me, because I got a feeling what it is, but just in layman terms, in just one line, what is urban regeneration?
So it's what you, I suppose the clues in the title. It's
I know what it is. But like,
really the things about kind of how do you transform places. So I was working in what was the community regeneration unit. I was doing employment support, but I really wanted to get a sense of what's the kind of the I suppose what's the framework within which this kind of sits. What's some of the history of this, and then what are
trying to get the
elements
foundations for you to excel.
Exactly. So at that point, I was like, okay, I'll invest some of my time because I think there's something in this, and so I went and did the postgraduate part time over a couple of years, and I think that gave me the grounding, that knowledge kind of base to complement the kind of work experience side of things.
So you've always been a doer in terms of like, because a lot of people, they do the chemical engineering degree and they leave it at that. Like they'll try to find a job and keep going till they get there. But then you went to employment support eventually at Housing Association. And then instead of just sticking there and just kind of learning your trade within it, you wanted to know the framework and like what actually makes it. So then like talk to me about that, like doing a master's in that 1 year in urban regeneration.
So
talk to me about the mentality of it.
It's a curiosity thing again, isn't it? Is it like I want to know what this thing is. Let me find out a bit more. Let me understand how this stuff works. How does it fit together? How does it make kind of sense? So, I'm still, I'm doing a lot of talking today with you. Usually,
you're the one
I'm asking questions because I'm keen to understand.
Person, exactly.
Yeah, I'm keen to understand. Really, I'm keen to hear. I love listening. To people.
So do I.
And it's a good skill to have, really, genuinely. If you can listen and kind of pick up things, I think it's really, I don't know whether it's underrated, but, people now understand the value of listening. I'd say, certainly question things and kind of find out about it and then kind of listen, and it gets you it takes you a long way. But as I said, I'm kind of naturally curious. I still am. I still am curious about just stuff. I'm curious about your setup here, for example. When we came in, I was asking you, how did you get into this? How are you finding it? How does this work? And what you get?
You gave me a whole interrogation.
But I was like, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. I'm like, so
I appreciate it.
I find kind of, I feel inspired by people who are doing something, and I'm like, I'm genuinely curious about, knowing more about it and the difference that it makes, and what works for you, and what are you getting out of this? How do you make a difference? So. And so I, being curious, I think is a good thing. And then
100%, because it's like if you don't ask questions, then you're never gonna know the answer. Like today, obviously my voice is playing up with me, but I'm still going through with it. I'm still asking questions, and it's good to learn, because I feel like with you, it's kind of like your trajectory is something that I ain't seen before in terms of like always asking questions, and you've always been on the front foot. And I don't really see in like, well, question me, let me know if I'm wrong, but it's never been a no with you in terms of like you get hit by something and you accept it. You're always kind of moving forward and being transferable. The key word is adaptability. I think you're always adaptable in terms of your position.
I do feel it's not true to say that there haven't been times when stuff happens and it knocks the wind out of you. We'll have these moments, and I think part of that is just being okay with that and knowing that there are going to be times, and then that then you can do something about it. I mean, I think that's the difference. Is how long do you stay there, and
how do you get yourself out of it? Because I feel like it's coming to my head now, but I feel like when you look at boxing, I don't know if you're watching now, but just imagine a boxing. Like, I feel like you're one of those boxers that's always bobbing and weaving. Like, you're always moving, you're never standing still. But then, like, I feel like, let's say if life's ever clung to one, in terms of like they hit you with a good shot on your jaw and then you've gone down. For a boxer, in terms of like those types of boxers, it's hard to get back up. Like, if you look at Amir Khan, for example, I know it's a bit of a weird example, but if he gets knocked down, it's hard for him to get back because he's always bobbing and weaving. So when someone connects, he's more time he's walking into the shot. So for you, how is he trying to get back up from that?
I think it's a good analogy, and I think life and take community regeneration, which is my work. I mean, I feel like it's a contact sport. You know, you're gonna get knocks. You're gonna get knocked down, and it's not that you got knocked down. It's you. What do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you dust yourself down and you go again, don't you? And that's the stuff that you know, the ones who keep. You know, that's what makes the people who are successful, aren't they? You know, so. Anyone who, in that kind of analogy, it doesn't matter. I don't believe it doesn't matter how good you are. Eventually, you're going to get caught by something.
Exactly.
Really, and that's frankly, I mean, that's when you test your mettle. It's all well and good when times are going well, and I mean, it's not actually what tests your mettle when it's not going well. You know, what do? You know, how do you respond in those moments? You know, and what are your values? What's your purpose? And do you stick to your values? Not when times are good,
but when
life's not kind of good. And you know, I mean, some of that is about character. I mean, I was looking at, you know, the work that you do. I noticed the 4 C's. I was really intrigued by that. But the one that really, you know, got my attention was character.
You're the first one to mention that, you know, because my dad's been working on that for ages. But it was me and him sitting. I remember because it was only like last year we were trying to like pin it down. Like, what are the actual 4 C's? But go on, talk to me about that.
The one that stood out for me was character, because I think that, you know, managers, leaders, if you're going to be successful in life, I think, you know, that content of your character is the thing that you have, you know, and you can develop it, but it's yours. You know,
you have to continually develop it.
Exactly. And if you have that, and if you focus on developing your character, being the best possible version of yourself, and I think that takes you such a long way. The other things you can learn, you know, skills and strategy, you know, yes, but you know, character, you know, attitude, those things I think are just so fundamental to, you know, wanting to be successful in whatever you want to do. And you'll see that in whether it's in boxing or whatever it is in, you know. That
I felt it because I remember like when you were talking earlier about why we got these signs up and stuff, that why this is here, because I'm the one hosting. And also it's kind of like, it was important to me because as I was telling you off camera, that was like my first thing in terms of like, you know, like when you have your first, like for you with maybe chemical engineering or going into the employment sector with your your father's mate, that was kind of like your first inkling. For me, that was when the brain and the heart kind of connected. Like, as I said it many times, but like that was the first thing where like I felt like I got something. Where like, because for me it was like my dad's always doing stuff, so it's like, what's he gonna do? Because I'm the oldest son. It's like I'm the next. So I felt that pressure from young, because my dad's always been the one to do other stuff. So it's like, what am I gonna do? Like I got a big shoes to fill. So then for me it was that, and then it was like. So then when I had that was kind of like my first thing, and I was going with that. That's why I was doing with my A-levels. I was keep pushing through. But then when that got taken away from me through no fault of my own or no fault of anyone, then it was kind of like, who am I about? Like, what am I about? Who am I? And then like, what's my character? And like, that's where the 4 C's kind of come about, because we were kind of looking at like what actually creates leaders. And like we looked at, you know, Here by Right, the framework. Have you heard of that one?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're looking at that, and then we're thinking, how can we tailor it? So, because we've done it before, my dad's done it before, but how do we tailor it and condense it into 4 kind of things that are easy to understand? Because I've got another one where I mentioned on the podcast before, but it's receptive, responsible, and relentless. Like I kind of like these like little mantras. So receptive, responsible, relentless is kind of like the one that I kind of made myself to get me through my first kind of knockback. So it's like receptive in terms of listening and like talking to people, responsible in terms of like my own actions, like where I'm trying to go, and the daily kind of things that I'm gonna do to get there. And then relentless is like, I'm never gonna give up. Like I'm always gonna keep going, and then you gotta keep going till you crush the door down, basically.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, because I said that to, I don't know if you know Tom from Sport for Life.
I know of Sport for Life.
Yeah, on Sport for Life. So I was talking to him, and then that was kind of like, we both kind of related to that in terms of like, that's like the mantra to, it kind of encapsulates what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you've done, I mean, this podcast and what you're doing is great. And obviously you've used, that experience to kind of propel you forward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what we were talking about earlier in terms of like transferable skills. So you got it through your chemical engineering degree. I got it through the pizza shop and also like my other stuff. But it's like you gotta learn through these experiences. Like it's not what sets you back, it's what makes you, is what you kind of take from it.
Yeah.
And like if you take nothing from it, then you've done yourself a disservice. It's not the action, it's what you
do as a result of the action.
Yeah, exactly,
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about MOAT. MOAT. I can't remember what it exactly stands for, but that was what you had before you became a chief officer at Witton Lodge Community Association.
Oh, the trust, Moat House Trust in Coventry. So the trust was a successor body to the New Deal for Communities, which is a government program. It was one. There were the New Deal programs up and down the country. There were 39 of them, actually 2 in Birmingham.
Okay.
So I worked for the one in Aston, would you believe, as deputy chief executive, and then I moved to Coventry as was director of that program for 6 years. And so when the program it was time limited, it was 10 year, and we set up the Moat House Trust as a successor body, so a legacy vehicle to continue the work, beyond that funded initiative. So the trust is there; it's still there. I still keep in contact. I mean, it's been 10 years. It's still doing great work. That redevelopment, regeneration in Coventry is continuing.
Would you say that's your kind of building blocks in terms of like what? Because what I'm trying to get at is like reading through your story, like that's the first time I kind of saw where you were kind of like you kind of spearheaded something in terms of like not just being an associate or an assistant. Was that the first one? Or?
I think the NDC, yes. So I was the director of the program, so that was executive director for one. You know what I mean? So I was the paid lead, and we had a team.
But what I'm saying is that was the first time you were kind of in the forefront of something, whereas not just being a sporting body of it.
Yes, although actually probably my first experience of something like that was probably earlier than that with Cape Hill, which is in Smethwick, Cape Hill Trust. So that was
so talk to me about Cape Hill.
Small kind of project. It was an organization that was being set up to focus on part of is in Soho and Victoria, which is in Smethwick ward, and they wanted to set up a local trust to work locally. And see, by that time, I'd been working for a few years, and then someone mentioned to me there was this kind of opportunity, and I'd used to cover part of work in the Black Country and also in Birmingham, so I knew of it, and I thought, okay, well, this looks again something new here. It looks like an opportunity, and
get the hardware going.
Yeah, and I was like, and they wanted to set it up. They wanted to, employ some staff. They wanted to develop some services, and I thought, okay, well, this looks like it could be an opportunity, and I applied for the job.
Well, the pressure, like, in terms of when you actually got the job, because that's the first time you're kind of learning. Correct me if I'm wrong, but learning like how to manage people, how to manage the kind of the asset itself. Yeah.
And pressure's an interesting.
No, but I think pressure is good.
Really,
I think it's good. I think it keeps
pressure
on your toes.
is pressure, and it's how you're alive. Really, I mean, it's a sense of. I mean, does it quicken your heart? You'll know what it's like. When you feel kind of. If you're feeling a bit nervous, if you're feeling a little uncomfortable, there's a bit of pressure. That's what gives you a sense of.
The intangible in it. The buzz in it.
So if it quickens the heart, I think that's a good thing. You know what I mean?
You embrace it.
And I think so. And that's a good point, really. I've always liked doing things which just make me feel a little uncomfortable, a little bit outside of what you normally would do. I mean, I don't like heights, for example, but I'll go and try and abseiling simply because I'm like, okay, well, what will this feel like now? And so, do the things that make you feel a little uncomfortable, because that's how you're.
Now you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Then you know your threshold in it.
Yeah. or don't know your threshold.
Yeah.
I don't know what my boundaries are really until you kind of constantly. So today I might feel like my boundaries here, but when I push it a little more, actually it might be there.
Yeah, exactly.
So
you never know it.
You never know.
Exactly.
And if you can keep that mindset, I don't quite know where my boundaries is, then you'll keep going, you'll keep evolving and developing, and who knows where it'll take you.
Do you ever shut off?
Do I ever shut up? Did you say?
Shut off.
No, I'm joking.
No, shut up. You done me there, because I thought you actually thought I said that.
no, I'm joking. I don't know is the answer. Not really. See, the thing with this is, when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like you need to shut off.
Yeah.
I don't ever feel like I need to.
No, I have the same, but like I call it a bug, but like the same kind of thing where like I never shut off. Like I'm always going. Like even if I'm trying to shut off, I'm always thinking about something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're different situations. I'm different obviously when I'm with my children, with my parents, or my friend. So it's different.
Yeah.
But there's not like I don't say like I've left work now and
Yeah,
it's done,
exactly.
And so when you're passionate, when you love what you do, actually you don't feel like you need to shut off, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so,
but how do you balance it in terms of like, because sometimes you might be like on a phone call but you're talking to your kids, like you gotta have that time for your kids or even your mates or even your wife. Like how does it kind of like, how do you balance it?
I pay attention. So when I'm talking to you, you're the most important person is you. My attention is here.
Same vice versa.
And I think absolutely, that point about kind of listening and having your full attention. So whoever that is with, because I think it's so important really to do that, because that's how you connect. That's how you engage.
Exactly.
So when I'm with my children, absolutely, that's who I'm talking to. I want to know. I want to hear from them, and consciously kind of move other stuff, and you turn your phone off and whatever. So these things that you just learn as well as you go through.
Exactly.
So you kind of you manage it like that.
But talking about pressure, talking about deputy lieutenant of, I don't know what it is. Like, I'm ready and I know a bit about it, but I've never heard of it before. So just talk to me.
So what this would be really interesting. So what you pick? What do you think? What have you picked
so
up
what
about
I've picked up of it is you're deputy lieutenant of, is the West Midlands? Yeah, the West Midlands. Yeah, I got that right. And then it's also like, it's kind of like when all I kind of gathered really, because I obviously I've had a brief look because I don't want to know too much just in case like I'm overbearing or whatever. But it's kind of like when royalty kind of comes over and then you're kind of the first point of contact. I've got that right, sort of.
Yeah. You have. So there is a Lord Lieutenant of the West Midlands, and he is he's now the King's representative.
Okay.
In the counties. So the West Midlands county, he's the Queen's representative. So you're right. When there are royal visits, he will be the person that will, accompany them. And it's also the lieutenancy. Also, the things that have really, things that have really, I suppose I've engaged with the lieutenancy is things like the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service.
Okay.
So that's really like the kind of honour for voluntary and community organisations who are doing excellent work in their neighbourhoods, in their communities. And we've seen that over the last few years. The pandemic, COVID has been terrible. But actually at the same time, how many groups, how many organisations have really stepped up and come forward and really shown the value of charities and communities and doing that. So the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service recognises those outstanding contributions made by local groups and local communities and individuals. And that's really what kind of attracted me to that. So what I'm keen to do is, raise the profile of the work of, community groups and organisations and the fabulous people who volunteer across the neighborhoods. So that was the bit that really attracted me to it. And I think also the lieutenancy potentially, and it's a way of bringing people and communities together. So as a deputy lieutenant, so we stand in for the Lord Lieutenant at the kind of visits that you've talked about, but also it's going into local schools. So this year was is also the Jubilee year. So I had the privilege of going into local schools, and they were celebrating the Jubilee and talking to children and teachers. So and it's very early days. That's the other truth, right? So I was appointed only this year in April, so it's very kind of early days. But a lot has happened in that time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is that how are you appointed? Is it how did it work? Yeah.
The appointment is made by the Lord Lieutenant.
Okay. So it's not like a public thing.
It's an appointment made by the Lord Lieutenant, and there's a process which I don't fully understand. Which sits behind that.
I didn't even realize, speaking truthfully, I didn't realize we had a Lord Lieutenant. Yeah, I didn't realize this was a thing. I didn't realize that.
Well, speaking truthfully, up until probably 18 months, 2 years ago, neither did I.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I'm not the only one. Yeah.
No, and I think there's a job for the lieutenancy to do in terms of better promoting and better connecting in with, communities and organizations, and that's one of the things that really kind of motivated me to to join and see what part I can play.
So then there's two pressures with that kind of in terms of obviously being the deputy lieutenant, and then are you the first Asian to do it or
no?
Okay, so there's been Asians before to do it. Okay,
and still are.
Okay, so this is how much I don't know about it, because I was going to say okay, so then what's the pressure of is there a pressure of being the deputy lieutenant? Yeah, because I don't really know nothing about it, so that's how I'm trying to learn.
Is there a pressure? No more or no less than
anything else.
The other areas I've talked to you about, and is it something new and different? It is.
Yes, it's another challenge.
Well, it's another opportunity.
Exactly.
And this is the thing. I mean, unless you do it, how do you know? And so you take the challenge or the opportunity,
exactly.
And they're kind of different sides of the same coin, really, aren't they? Really, and you go and put your best foot forward, and you see what you can contribute, what difference you can make.
So was that your initial feelings when you got the email or the phone call regarding the position?
My initial feeling was I thought about it first. Actually, I was like, what will I bring to this? First of all, what can I bring to this? And what difference will I make, and what difference can it make?
Yeah, exactly.
Does it align with some of the things that are important to me? And those are the conversations that I had. So I was like, well, I probably asked those questions. So what difference do you think I can make? And these are things important to me, and I'm interested in. How will that fulfill that? So it's as much as a two-way kind of thing to make sure it fits in with the kind of things that matter to me.
So then talk to me about Witton Lodge, and how does it all kind of fit in? So Witton Lodge Community Association, then you're also involved in different boards, aren't you? Across the city. And then you've got deputy lieutenant. So how does it kind of the 9 hours in the day? How does it kind of all fit in, and your whole?
Well, you know what it's like. You make time for things that matter.
Yeah. But
that's what you do, don't you? I mean, if it matters to you, you will do it. So you're right. I'm involved in some other things, and one of those is it's called Centre for the New Midlands. So it's a think tank based in this region, which is really also, and I'm involved with the Housing and Communities Board within that. So again, my passion is, what happens in communities and how can you affect change locally in neighbourhoods, and that could be community led, whether it's housing or health and employment. So if I'm passionate about it, and if there's a vehicle to promote that, to change policy and gets that into the kind of places that it needs to be, then it's important to kind of do that. So I think it's important to kind of act, isn't it? And what do they say about a journey of, I think, is 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And so you choose the journeys that you want to go on, really, I suppose. And so you make time for the things that are important and the things that matter to you. It means sometimes you stop doing certain things as well, and I think that's okay as well.
Align your focus a bit more centrally, in terms of have things that you're more focused on than others.
No. I still like to keep it open.
So what do you mean by that then? So what do you mean by what you just said there about the opportunities and like maybe park some on the side and then do some more?
So I've stepped down from some boards because for a number of reasons.
No, but you just said like when there's more opportunities, you can go bigger. But like, so what I'm trying to say is, you just said there like some you gotta like step down and like let them kind of go to other people that might be better positioned or whatever.
Yes, and I think that's something that you do because you think, am I making a contribution? Is it for am I making a difference? And also, actually, is it still aligned to my values and the purpose I want to achieve? And if they are, great, and make the commitments and contributions. And if it's not, then you just have a conversation. Say, I think I've done this, and I think someone else is better placed to do that. But I still like the kind of the variety of you mentioned Love Tenancy, the Centre think tank, Witton Lodge. So all of these are still things that I have passion for these things. Keep me motivated, keep me engaged, keep me interested, and keep me curious.
Will you ever end? Will you ever retire? Because I feel like you won't. Like speaking to you now and speak for the last I don't know how long, hour and 20 minutes or whatever. I feel like you never will. I feel like you'll always have something going on.
The truth of it, I don't know.
What do you feel like?
You know what? I feel like.
You know what I mean? Like, what's the end game? Or is there one? Like, some people have like an end game or like a overall thing of like, this is how it's going to look. Maybe when they're 50, 60. But for you, I feel like you might just have different things that you're just going to keep adding on.
I think that's the beauty of not knowing, what's on there. It's a difference between having a compass and a map.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people are really good at it. They have a map and they know exactly what they're going to do. Other people, you give them a compass and say, that. And with that, sometimes you don't know what's going to come along your way. You might have some pitfalls, but also you're going to meet people. You're going to, do things that you never thought you were going to do. And that still... that still appeals to me, to be able to do that. And I feel kind of blessed. I've, worked with some fantastic people. I've, my boards, my colleagues, and this goes back to what you were saying. A lot of it is about the, the mindset that you have. And, if you're not going to do it.
Yeah, you isn't it? Exactly. No one will do for you. I think that's a great way to end it, and then maybe we get you on in a couple of years and see where you are now. I appreciate you coming on.
All right, cheers. All right.